Morning, everyone. So I thought pretty long and hard about how WebRTC has really been progressing over the past few years, and really what might be top of mind to you, whether you're on the vendor side of the world or the end user side of the world. And what really kind of appealed to me was the fact that when I talk to customers, it really is just the beginning for WebRTC. So WebRTC has laid this nice foundation, and now it's what's next. What is that going to enable me to be able to do? So I thought I would start with just a brief history of kind of where we've all come in this journey. And this is certainly one audience that I don't need to spend a lot of time on the history of communications, but I wanted to give it a little bit different perspective that I think will set up nicely for convincing you that WebRTC is truly just the beginning. So of course we all started in this telephony or IP telephony world. It didn't take long before that moved quickly into this unified communications. One of the promises that unified communications really never fulfilled was this collaboration-enabled business processes. And I'm going to talk more about that, and in particular how WebRTC is really changing that dynamic very quickly. We've kind of now, within the past few years or so, moved to this next level of what we call business collaboration. So it's not really a technology-driven process as much as it is about integrating the rest of my business processes into communication. And by the way, that hasn't been easy, despite vendors putting together platforms and APIs and SDKs. It still hasn't yet really fulfilled that promise. Now we're in this next era, and WebRTC is helping to drive it substantially in what I call this awareness collaboration. History is very important. Context is very important. Business processes are very important. And while WebRTC lays a great foundation, it's just the beginning for being able to move into this new era of awareness collaboration. And I'm going to spend the rest of my time attempting to convince you that it couldn't be more perfect timing and that WebRTC truly has laid this great foundation, and to get you excited about what the possibilities are that are very real today that are going to augment this new platform, this new capability. So let me talk about kind of three trends that we're seeing in the industry. Again, none of these will probably surprise you. You hear a lot about bring your own device. Well, very quickly, most contact centers and enterprises, and certainly consumers, went right through the bring your own device era into the bring your own everything. We're bringing our own devices. We're bringing our own media. We're bringing our own applications. So this trend of bringing together many forms of communication, many forms of devices, many forms of media is going at light speed right now. At the office at Avaya, I probably use 4 or 5 different devices every day, of which Avaya only owns one of those. The rest are all devices that I bring that help me do my job better. So I'm a classic example of bring virtually everything that's going to help me be more productive and my job be easier. So that's certainly one of the trends that we're seeing. You're faced with that, I'm sure, every day as well. The second is that as we're developers, we have this real dilemma of we have to turn our applications out to many, many operating systems and many different browsers. And so every time you write this application, you have to think about the vendor that you're going to be putting your application on, and they're all different in some form. You have to think about what browser you're going to have to support if you're browser-based, and of course we know the differences that occur at the browser level. And really, I don't have a substantial application or a usable production application as a developer until I can check all of those boxes. I'm not going to be successful if I have big gaps. WebRTC has really helped to lay the foundation that says whether I'm building a native app or whether I'm browser-based, I have the beginnings of this ubiquitous platform that helps me get there faster. So that has been a great advantage that WebRTC has had today. So that's kind of the second trend, one that is paid attention more by developers than probably end users. Talking about end users, there's this kind of third trend, and certainly we've seen this explode in the last couple of years, and that is to start to WebRTC enable the applications that face the end consumer. So whether I'm getting technical support about an Avaya product, or whether I'm online ordering a pizza and I want to get my pizza consultant to help me put my ideal pizza together, I want some form of communication built right into that application. These happen to be browser-based. These could just as easily be native mobile applications that I have on my Android tablet or my iPad or my iPhone. Okay, so three very significant trends that we're seeing in the industry. And WebRTC, of course, is very important because it is really helping any form of communication all the way out to the consumer be easier to implement, and for all of us to be able to get our applications and our solutions to market faster, whether we're in the commercial space or whether we're building for our own internal use. And I like to say this is truly not your grandmother's phone, you know, hanging on the kitchen wall anymore for communication. WebRTC is truly changing that. Now, I wanted to go back and just think about the ways we've communicated historically, and then talk about this new era of the platform that is truly going to be a game changer in the way we communicate going forward. Wasn't that long ago that just about the only way you could communicate with someone is to be face-to-face. And if you wanted to communicate remotely, then you would be a little bit further apart and you'd yell at each other. Not a very good way to communicate, but for, of course, a long time that was about the only way. Technology changed many decades ago, and then we had the ability to communicate globally, typically point to point. And then all the way from kind of the radio to Twitter to any number of applications, we now have the ability to instantly communicate with millions of people. And in some cases, that's one-way communications, in others, that's two-way. But we can't deny that it fundamentally changed the way that we communicate. Now, if we think about WebRTC and this next generation, we're going to change it again. This is truly a game-changing technology. And that WebRTC becomes that common channel. But it has to be more than that. WebRTC is a great beginning, but we have to build these applications and these capabilities on top of it. So I want to give you some examples and some use cases and talk about some recommendations as to how to do exactly that. So that question is what's next, and why is it that WebRTC is that great beginning, but what can you expect as that next generation game changer that's going to take WebRTC to the next level? Our view at Avaya was that that has to be a platform. It has to be an application platform, an environment that gives you the ability to take what you already have today that's non-WebRTC based, along with this new exciting WebRTC based capability, and you have to be able to build virtually any type of communications application that you want in that environment. And at Avaya, we call that environment the Avaya Collaboration Environment that is now fully WebRTC enabled. And what I'm going to do is show you some use cases about how this platform, or how a next generation platform that is WebRTC enabled, is truly the game changer, with WebRTC being a very important part of that. Now, you could listen to me for the next 5 minutes on some interesting use cases, but what I thought would be interesting is to play a video, short video, that will give you a very specific example of a use case that is WebRTC based, that is built on this application platform. And I think you'll start to see that WebRTC was a great beginning, but the requirements were much bigger than that. So why don't we go ahead and run the video, and then I'll come back to you and talk a little bit about what it took to put that together and some of the new exciting things that you can expect that are WebRTC based. Okay, so if we can bring the video up, please. I may end up explaining it to you in 5 minutes. Okay, hang on, we'll get it up here, I'm sure.
What was the development time of doing this in advance? Waiting for, how long did it take you guys?
Yeah, so the question was, in this example, the use case, what did it take to put together? About a week or so. And you'll see in the use case, it's all the way from the consumer all the way back into a contact center. Now, the caveat to that is obviously it takes advantage of the contact center capabilities that are already there. So this marriage of WebRTC to capabilities that already exist, having a very clean marriage of those was really important. So not writing it from scratch. Okay, we have it ready to go? Okay, let's go ahead and roll it.
To deliver a really great customer experience, it's not simply about connecting with customers. It's about getting all the connections working together for every customer, every time, on every device. That's the idea behind Avaya or a collaboration environment. It lets you easily assemble all the elements of a great customer service solution and get them all working together to meet the needs of a customer like Susan. Susan has a new refrigerator that looks great in her kitchen and has the features she's always wanted. But it's been installed and running for hours now, and the freezer compartment still hasn't frozen. So, as she's completing the product registration online, Susan notices that there's a click-to-call option and decides to get some answers right away. Because she started at the registration page, all of Susan's information now travels with her call, including the make and model of the refrigerator and her problem with the freezer compartment. This information makes it possible to assign Susan's call to the right person, in this case, to Gary, the product specialist for that line of refrigerators. Gary scans all the relevant information Susan has provided. As Gary starts troubleshooting the problem with Susan, a real-time speech monitor listening in on the call picks up on the words fluctuating temperature and instantly generates a list of recently resolved trouble reports on that very issue. Using this information, Gary is able to solve Susan's problem within minutes. And it was all put together with Avaya Aura Collaboration Environment. Avaya Aura Collaboration Environment is a new way to design, build, and implement communications applications. It provides developers with a comprehensive set of capabilities, tools that can be arranged and rearranged to deliver a wide range of communications and collaboration experiences in the contact center and across the entire enterprise. Avaya Aura Collaboration Environment, another way to transform your business, one great interaction at a time.
So I want to point out some subtle things that you probably saw in that video, and I want to do that by walking you through another use case. But just to kind of name a few, WebRTC was used as the front end so that when Susan did the click-to-call to get support on her refrigerator, that was all done through her laptop using WebRTC, all browser-based. But if you notice, again, that was just the beginning. What was also included was context. So all the context, not only about what was happening now, but all the context about Susan as a past customer was all made available to the system. Then there was workflow and intelligent routing. So that WebRTC call executed a workflow and got Gary, the contact center agent, because he had exactly the right attributes to be able to handle Susan's call. Then, once they were talking, that WebRTC call had real-time speech analytics attached so that as Susan was speaking and Gary was speaking, it could pick up verbal cues from Susan and make recommendations to Gary. All that was just built right in and was inherited by that WebRTC call. Very, very simple to implement. Only took one system. We're not talking about one system for routing, another system for speech analytics, another system for context. It was that one single platform. So let me walk you through another use case just to demonstrate that again. In this use case, we're going to have somebody who's online, and what they're going to be doing is they're going to our fictitious website here, Gillian's, and they want to be able to use WebRTC to be able to do a click-to-call or click-to-video because they have a question about these jeans that they're going to be ordering through this website. Okay, now, if we think about our user here, what do they want? They want easy communication right through their laptop, and they want to get to the expert to solve their problem. Doesn't make any difference if it's a refrigerator problem or buying jeans, it's all about getting to the right person. So WebRTC is great, but if you can't get to the right person, the form of communication you're using doesn't matter. Now, keep in mind that Gillian's is a very large company. They have all these great resources and literally hundreds and hundreds of agents with various attributes. What language they can speak, what genes they are experts in, whether it's men's or women's clothing that they're an expert in, what country they're in. They have all these various attributes. And you can see that our customer here has the three little bullets there of the attributes that they need that would be an expert. But yet all of our agents have all these different attributes. So the key is, how do we pair up our caller with the right person, the very specific person that can best handle them? So there, it's all about attribute-based routing and taking that WebRTC call and getting it very specifically to the right person to be able to handle that problem. And we call that WebRTC attribute-based routing, built right into collaboration environment. Okay, the second thing I talked about in the video was this idea of speech analytics and the idea of context. So when the person clicked to say they wanted to talk to somebody about blue jeans, all of the information went along with that WebRTC call. Not only what web pages they did today, but also what web pages they had visited historically, what jeans they had bought historically. All the unstructured data that made that context very real to them. Okay, now they're connected, and I have the caller to the perfect agent, and they're having a conversation. I mentioned in the video the speech analytics. So in this particular case, we want to measure our agent real time on 4 things that they're doing right over that WebRTC call. And you can see those are on this clipboard. So they want to make sure that as they speak, they have the right greeting. They want to be able to tell the customer that this call may be recorded for quality purposes. In this case, our agent has yet to say that to the customer. How do we know that? Because real-time speech analytics is monitoring that WebRTC call and is automatically logging real-time whether or not that agent is adhering to the scripts that they should be adhering to. They have yet to tell this caller that the call is being recorded. At the same time, they have told the caller about their return policy. Why? Because real-time speech analytics was listening to the agent and determined that they said all the right things over that WebRTC call to adhere to identifying and telling the customer about the return policy, and at the end of the call, the agent successfully closed the call appropriately. Thank you for calling, thank you for your order, etc. So now, real time, we know whether or not that agent adhered to the WebRTC call. Didn't have to have a separate system, didn't have to have separate capabilities, all built right into that one single platform. So that platform handled the WebRTC call, it intelligently routed the call via attributes, and it passed all the context to the agent, and it attached real-time speech analytics to the call to monitor the call while it's going on. I could very easily, in the platform, send a message or pop a screen to a supervisor saying this agent just finished a call 5 seconds ago and did not adhere to the script. And that agent or that supervisor could pay a friendly visit to that agent, reminding them that they need to make sure that they talk about the recording notice, that they have failed to do that in their last 2 or 3 calls. They don't have to wait until 2 days later when they're going out and listening to those calls after the fact. They can do that real time. Okay, now to do this, a lot of us in this room are developers or engineers, and in the past, what would we have to do on a platform like this? Well, we would have to have written lots and lots and lots and lots of code. So even though it's a great platform, it's going to take days, weeks, months, man years to be able to go off and do that implementation. That's no longer the case. Just as WebRTC is simple to insert into my browser and make that connection, the attribute-based routing, the context, the speech analytics, that should be equally as easy. And what you see here is the actual workflow designer and a real workflow to where to implement that, I didn't have to write a single line of code. I just simply dragged and dropped and built that workflow in a single platform that had all the routing, all the context, all the speech analytics, and the full support for WebRTC right into my contact center. So now when I talk about WebRTC as being just the beginning, now you see all this richness that can go around and with WebRTC that makes this a great experience for the 2 constituents, in this case our customer and our agent, to have a very pleasant journey to be able to increase sales, solve a problem, etc. Okay, second problem. Now we don't have to write a whole bunch of code, but if I'm a developer or I'm vendors like many of you and I want to go off and develop applications, it may be easy to develop the application, but I have to go set up a lab. So now if I'm going to go set up a lab and I have full-blown telephony, full-blown video, collaboration environment as my development environment, I want to test scalability, etc., that's very expensive and very time-consuming. Many of you have your own labs where you can go and do that type of development. We wanted that to be brain-dead simple and very, very fast. So what we did was we built Collaboratory. And Collaboratory is a cloud-based sandbox for doing development using WebRTC. So now, in a very short period of time, you can simply flip the switch and say, turn on a lab for me. I want to start doing development tomorrow. And I want to do development in all the capabilities I talked about. Speech analytics, routing, audio, video, etc. So it's all about fast, and most importantly, it's all about expense. Now, if you were to go build your own lab, and you're going to do this in a scalable way, you're going to have lots and lots of virtual servers, you're going to have to go get all of your trunking, you're going to have to get everything you need to be able to test that full-blown application. So I wanted to make a point to you just to give you an idea about how cost-effective this is. If I took a normal lab that I would have to build, and I took the price of just one server, forget about the other 10 servers or 20 servers or 30 servers you might need in a hugely scalable implementation. If I took the price of just one server, for that same price, I can get Collaboratory for about 3 years. Okay? So I don't need to convince you of the value of being able to start to develop your WebRTC-based application in the cloud, where you can have it turned on very, very quickly, and you don't have the expense of going out and building these expensive, scalable labs that cost a lot of money and take a lot of time. WebRTC is about fast. WebRTC is about easy. And we took that into consideration, and exactly why we built the Collaboratory, to make it easy as a developer and as a vendor to get this going. Not just WebRTC, but all the other facilities I talked about. Routing, context, speech analytics, all of those capabilities built right in. Okay, so I hope this starts to give you some idea that we believe WebRTC is a great foundation. We think it is a fantastic technology. We think that it is the beginnings of a game changer. When you start to put the richness of a real platform on top of it that gives you all the capabilities into your contact centers, into your enterprise to enterprise communication, now we believe that WebRTC is even more viable, and it's going to be even more of a game changer as we go forward. Don't forget about the fact that WebRTC being new, it still has to fit into your existing environment. No one is going to take their large enterprise and forklift everything simply to move to a new technology. So being able to have your existing technology survive and being able to have WebRTC in a major way simply come into play and be naturally inserted into that is very, very important. And that's why having a single platform like collaboration environment allows you to blend the old with the new and not have to forklift any of the investment that you've already made today. So I hope in a short period of time I've given you some ideas about how great beginning, when you start to put some of these other capabilities on top of it, now you're talking about a world-class application that you would put in front of any of your users within your enterprise, or that you would put in front of any of your end customers. Okay, I want to thank you for your time today. Hopefully you'll have enough interest to visit us and some of our partners and start to get some hands-on experience with what's it like to implement speech analytics, what's it like to drag and drop and build a workflow, how easy it is to put speech analytics together. And those just touch on just a few of the capabilities. We and others can show you a lot more capabilities that really polish and put the robustness into WebRTC. Thank you very much.